Hello, good evening. It's 5 p.m. Welcome to 505. Coming up tonight, the National Petroleum Authority announces revised export prices, price floors effective August 4, 2026, with diesel now at 14 Ghana cedis, 97 pesos per litre, following the government's 2 Ghana cedis absorption directive. We'll tell you more. Stay with us. But as that happens, the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, COPEC, welcomes President Mahama's directive to absorb 2 Ghana cedis on diesel, calling it a positive development. We'll hear from the Executive Secretary of COPEC, Dan Kramwa, who was warned that the intervention could be short-lived and urging governments to move towards a strategic fuel reserve program to shield consumers from future price shocks.
I would say that this intervention is not one that government should rely on. Government should quickly find a way to move towards a strategic reserve program module, which then allows government to squeeze something within the taxes throughout the year, save something, and
Meanwhile, the Institute for Energy Security is calling on government to step in and cushion consumers following the recent surge in fuel prices.
There are changes from $75 to $100 a barrel. Clearly, the exposure to somebody like a refinery, you are talking about over 25.
Well, later this evening, Ministry of Health constitutes committee to investigate the unrest at the nursing training college Techiman Krobo. We have more plus business and some interesting analysis to do. Stay with us. And this bulletin is coming to you live from our studios here. Digital address GO 0423598 North Laboni, third day work on class 91.3 FM in Accra, Rose 11 Ho FM 92.5, Hills 91.7 at Dakar, both in the Volta region, Max Empire 96.9 at Bazua in the Upper East region, Dagon FM 102.5 in Tamale, Radio Power 96 in Spain. We're live on Facebook. Connect with us or join us with a thought, comment, and contributions with a hashtag 505, alternatively through our WhatsApp number 0500,000 202. My name is Kwame Okyere Jnr. It's time. It's 5:05. Welcome. Well, 505 is always brought to you by MTN Everywhere You Go. Review scratch for win and Electroland Ghana Limited. Now to the very first story. The Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, COPEC, has welcomed President John Dramani Mahama's directive to absorb 2 Ghana cedis on every litre of diesel, describing it as a positive development, but warning that the government should not rely on such short-term interventions. COPEC Executive Secretary Dan Kramwa said the intervention was necessary given the steep rise in diesel prices, which had approached 20 Ghana cedis per litre at some pumps. President Mahama directed the National Petroleum Authority to take steps to absorb 2 Ghana cedis on every litre of diesel as part of the measures to cushion consumers against rising fuel price increases. The intervention is intended to reduce the burden of rising fuel costs on Ghanaians, particularly commercial transport operators and businesses that depend heavily on diesel. My colleague Caleb Ahinakwa joins me in studio to provide more details on this development. Caleb, good to have you on 505. What more can we see as far as this development is concerned?
Right, so we can look at the comparison as regards the last time some interventions were made, and this was in April 2026. Now, that particular product that was covered was also diesel, but however, there was also an intervention on petrol. So in April 2026, and there was an intervention of 2 cedis removal on the price of diesel and 0.36 and on petrol. But for August, as we have seen the president mention, it's only been diesel. Petrol has not seen any intervention, and that duration was 1 month, and we are possibly going to see this particular duration within a month. And the trigger, as at April, was as a result of the Israel-US war, and crude at that time also surged from $63 to $102. But this particular intervention, most of the analysts and stakeholders are telling us that it's as a result of the threat for some fare hikes from GPRTU, and the rationale behind it is to ensure prevent this transport fare hike, contain the inflation we are currently experiencing, protect households and businesses. Again, the duration, both interventions, as I said, absorb that particular amount, and they were all approved by cabinet. And as regards how this will go long term, we are unable to tell. But in April, we understand that the Ministry of Energy disclosed intervention was costing the government over 200 million cedis. So that removal in April cost 200 million cedis per pricing window. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Although this started, we are yet to know how much this will cost, but we are
Yeah.
going. It will obviously affect
Exactly.
whatever it is government is
Yeah.
going to put into it. So this is what we have together, and there's been more calls for removal on petrol, and hopefully at least some removal will be done on petrol. But as it stands now, the only removal that subsidy has been granted is on diesel, which clearly means that most of these trotro operators are going to be the ones enjoying this subsidy. Yes.
But for what you're picking from the presidency, does it suggest that we're going to see some reduction in petrol as well?
Well, you and I are hoping that something like that will happen, because we don't drive trotro. Folks, there are folks who drive Yango, Uber, Boat. That's also, are in the transport space.
Exactly.
In fact, taxi drivers, also in the transport space, they don't use diesel. They
Diesel,
use petrol.
exactly.
So there's been no.
So this is more going to benefit the trotro drivers.
Exactly.
Because of the pressure to increase transport fares.
Exactly. That is what triggered them to, intervene at this point in time. The last time the intervention came was because of the U.S.-Israel war and crude prices increasing. But this time around, it's because trotro drivers are threatening. So maybe taxi drivers may also
threatening, and then there's going to be reduction in petrol prices.
That is when we possibly, but there's been no hints whatsoever. However, most of the analysts in the energy space are asking that, as that has been done, April we saw 0.36, that was just 36 pesos. Maybe that should be done same for a lot of the folks who don't drive diesel vehicles.
I see. Caleb, thank you so much for coming through with some details of what we need to know as far as this development is concerned. So just like he indicated, this is really going to benefit the trotro drivers, the Sprinter buses, the 207, I don't know if 207 still exists, 207 and the other commercial transport vehicles. But as to what happens to the taxi drivers, the online drivers, what are they also saying? Are they going to increase their transport fares while those who do the trotro will not reduce the transport fares? Currently, we understand that the driver unions are currently in a crunch meeting as to whether or not to increase the transport fares. We'll also get details from that outcome of that meeting, possibly on the course of the program. But Dan Kanamo explained that the government's decision to target diesel exclusively was driven by the disproportionate increase in diesel prices compared to petrol. He, however, cautioned that while the intervention is welcome, it comes at a cost to the public purse and could be short-lived. Listen to Dan Kanama, who's the executive secretary of COPEC.
Already, in fact, that the consumer will save on diesel so has been much before that, and so for those times they will still be paying a little higher. Indications are that might fuel price declining in the next couple of weeks, and if that you could sustain it at the 16 and the 40 for petrol, for diesel and respectively, there might be a blend of stability as far as the fuel market and the transportation space for then. Don't forget, this intervention will cost the government 260 billion for the next 1 month. Question of whether South allow this view of the fact that we have a tight budget run. I would say that this intervention is not one that government should rely on. Government will quickly find a way to move towards a strategic reserve program module, which then allows government to squeeze something within the taxes throughout the year, save something, and save or store fuel as and when prices are favorable, so that government can use that fuel that it bought at lower price when prices are favorable to intervene in the market when prices get a bit steeper. These interventions we are seeing, like I indicated, positive, but it could be short-lived because, again, it is going to cost government some revenue that it clearly wouldn't have taken a loss. Clearly, if you see the trend of increases for petrol and diesel, what you were seeing with diesel was quite alarming or staggering. A situation where the person driving a diesel engine is paying 19 Ghana cedi, approaching 20 Ghana cedi, whereas the one paying for petrol was paying about 14, 15 Ghana cedi. A variance of almost 4 Ghana cedi was quite significant. And so I was not surprised government took the intervention on diesel, although I would have wished that some 20 pesos could equally have been given to the petrol users so that they also get some relief and feel that impact in their pocket. But it is simply down to the trend. If you look at how fast the prices of diesel were going, if you were to take that decision as a president, I'm sure your call will be to ensure that those paying super high for diesel could be mitigated a bit. And I'm sure that would explain why the government will take this kind of a decision. What I do know is that Star Oil has kept that faith with its customers. And then again, you look at their activity as far as their marketing, PS marketing is concerned. They would always want to be on the side of the consumer by way of doing whatever they can to give you lower prices. GOIL has come to the table equally and are doing same, but we have not seen much from GOIL this particular window. The likes of Total, Shell, they seem quite conservative. They seem not to care really about the issue of prices. So people who buy from some of these OMCs and have stuck with them, you can say they are your conservative consumers who probably are not really bothered about prices. But as far as the two bigger OMCs are concerned, that competition has been steep. I am not surprised Star Oil has already come out with prices that should take effect tomorrow, today. If you read the government notice, it says that the reduction should kick in on the 4th of August, which is supposed to be tomorrow. But already Star has already indicated as of 2 p.m. today, it is delivering those low value to their customers. It's quite positive. I think that the other OMCs, if they are able to and they have the fiscal space, should also find something worth giving to the consumer so that the trotro, the taxi drivers, the online drivers can at least pay their transport fares without the need to increase, as we saw last week they threatened.
So that's the call by Duncan Amar, who's Executive Secretary for ACOPEC. Well, the National Petroleum Authority has announced revised ex-pump price floors for the period August 4 to August 15, 2026, with diesel now set at 14 Ghana cedis 97 pesos per litre, following the government's intervention to absorb 2 Ghana cedis on every litre of diesel. The revision comes after President Mahama directed MPA to absorb 2 Ghana cedis on diesel to cushion consumers against the impact of recent fuel price increase. My colleague Nanajima Prempe on the business desk joins me in studio with details of what the NPA statement say. Prempe, fill us in there.
Right, Coach, as you rightly said, a statement from the NPA states that as per the Petroleum Product Pricing Guidelines, all oil marketing companies and LPG marketing companies are entreated to comply with the above price floors for the window under consideration. It says the price floors exclude the premiums charged by international oil trading companies and the operating margins of BIDECs, as well as the marketers and dealers margins of OMCs and LPGMCs. And it goes on to say this will be independently determined by the companies as pertains under the PPG. So these are the current new price floor from the National Petroleum Authorities. For petrol, it's currently pegged at 14 cedis 53 pesos. Diesel is going for 14 cedis 97 pesos. So it means that the 2 cedis that the government, the president's directive has taken effect. LPG is going for 11 cedis and 6 pesos, and kerosene is going for 14 cedis 46 pesos.
Rempe, thank you so much for giving us the details of what's the statement from the National Petroleum Authority. So this is 505 on Class 91.3. Well, still on energy, the Institute for Energy Security has called on the government to intervene immediately to cushion consumers against the recent surge in petroleum prices nationwide. In a press release issued earlier today, the IES expressed a deep concern over the rising cost of fuel, warning that the development is inflicting significant financial hardship on households, businesses, and transport operators, while commending government on the 2 cedi absorption there. Let's listen to Prosper Smith, who is a researcher with the Institute for Energy Security, who spoke with my colleague Charles Akofi this afternoon on 12 Live.
Our downstream sector has really defined how exposed we are to international global pricing of products. You realize that the frequent price volatility is making the market in terms of pricing a bit unstable. If you see the crop price that MPA released prior to this point, you see that there has been a sharp increase in that of petroleum pricing. You check that of petrol, and it's around, the price change is around 9%, about 1 cedi, 25 pesos compared to the previous pricing window that just ended. And you come to diesel, and it's plus 2 cedis compared to the previous prices. And that is reflective of what has been happening in the international price. And there have been issues that there is even a daily change in pricing, which I cannot independently verify, knowing that we have a system that determines our pricing. But mainly, it tells you how volatile the fuel price has been in the last few days. It is changing rapidly and putting a lot of uncertainty in terms of the pricing trend that we are seeing currently in the country. And so if IES indeed release a report calling on government, if you look at the differences in fuel pricing now, diesel is somewhere almost 18 cedis at some OMCs. And so it is appropriate that government steps in to cushion consumers as it were, as they did before, because obviously the differences are not something that the consumer can bear those costs alone. So the dynamics are such that we are exposed extremely, prices are a bit volatile looking at what is happening in the Middle East, and as soon as these prices are changing, it means that the market must also adapt to this changing of prices.
Okay.
And so that has been the trend. It's very, very crucial knowing the part that fuel plays in the economy. You know, transport, the sales of goods and services and the likes. Obviously, we depend on fuel to make those cost-profit analysis. So it plays a very crucial role. And especially if you look at diesel, that is, industrial use and then heavy vehicles and the like, that is a backbone of what drives the economy. And so if the cost of your raw materials, of which fuel is inclusive, is high, then you are seeing generally inflation may probably increase. And if you are exporting more of these products, your exchange rate, the city may also suffer a bit because you need more of the dollar. So if the people at the end of the day to pushing us with some sort of relief, as they did before with the 2 cedi subsidies that they put on gas oil and 35% they put on gasoline. It went a long way to help, and we are not alien to this price trend and price hike.
So that's a Prosper Smith, who is a researcher with the Institute for Energy Security there. But the driver unions are currently in a crunch meeting discussing a possible transport fare adjustment. Here's the Deputy Public Relations Officer for the GPRT, Sabalamwa, who spoke to us earlier. Listen.
The leadership of GPRT, we are meeting to put our heads together because it's like the promise given to us by the Transport Ministry has failed. So we communicated to our members earlier that they should remain calm and that the promise is that the fuel will come down. But it has failed. So we need to put some measures down. Also, come up with our calculation in terms of, if we want to increase how the percentage that we will need and all that. So we are doing that today. Then we also involve all the other unions, the GRTCC and the other unions, so that we all, arrive at one point.
So that's Samuel Amwa, who is the Deputy Public Relations Officer for the GPR2, speaking with us earlier, indicating that they are in a meeting. And currently, some few minutes ago, my colleague Irajwa joined me here off air, of course, telling us that they are currently in a meeting to discuss a possible fair adjustment or not. So that's really going to be. So we'll bring you an outcome of that particular meeting, which is currently happening. But we also have a clear discussion on really, should that be the case? Should there be a transport fare adjustment, especially for those who are using diesel, and no adjustment for those who are using petrol, because that's what the directives from the government is to the National Petroleum Authority. This is 505 on Class 91.3 FM in Accra, across the country, and across the world on classfmonline.com. While still on energy, the Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors says that Ghana could produce half of its fuel needs locally if the Tema Oil Refinery and Sentio Oil Refinery run at full capacity. CEO for the chamber, Patrick Kweku Ofori, said the combined output of TOR and Sentio could meet up to 50% of Ghana's domestic fuel consumption. According to him, that would significantly cut the country's dependence on imported refined product and strengthen energy security. However, caution against relying on just one source of supply, saying Ghana must maintain diversified fuel supply channels to guard against disruptions from refinery shutdowns or infrastructure challenges. He explained that without diversification, the country risks emergency fuel imports, which are often more expensive and push cost onto consumers. The chamber CEO also called for policies that promote healthy competition in the downstream petroleum sector. He said a balanced environment will protect investment, preserve jobs, and support sustainable growth.
In time, there are changes from $75 to $100 a barrel. Clearly, the exposure to somebody like a refinery, you are talking about over $25 million within 48 hours. And these are a huge amount that can easily erode your capital. Seeing countries like Pakistan and others going on a daily pricing window. But my reservation is that we don't have that infrastructure to ensure that the consumers will be fairly protected on a daily pricing window, because if you lock in the price today and it will take you about 4 or 5 days for the product to get to the station, the volatility, if it is too high, will be a bit dependent. But what I think the caveat we can have is that if, let's say, exchange rate or the international prices move by, let's say, 20% change, then it's also incident on us that they should change. But another side that Bernard and the key advocates and all of us as consumers have also not looked at is that we should also be fair to the oil marketing companies and the BDC in the sense that when we saw prices dropping immediately, whether they bought the product for whatever value or so, they responded by passing it on to the market. And I think it's something that we need to keep on engaging, but not necessarily moving drastically and say that on a daily pricing regime. At least if today we've seen that the change by close of day is about 20% increase. I think it's only fair to protect the refineries or the importers by ensuring that they should be allowed to make those changes in some of their. I would say not so. TOR and the BDC need each other, and I would say that you check currently the arrangement that TOR has put in place. There is a big player.
So that's the Chief Executive Officer for the Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributions, Patrick Kweku Ofori. Let me go on the phone line and speak with the Executive Director for Center for Environmental Management and Sustainable Energy, who is also an energy analyst, Mr. Benjamin Isia. Mr. Isia, good evening to you. I'm grateful for your time on 505. First of all, let's start with the government absorbing 2 Ghana cedis on diesel. They're bringing the price floor down to about 14 cedis, 97 pesos. First of all, how significant is this intervention for, well, the average Ghanaian, particularly commercial drivers and businesses?
Generally, this intervention is likely going to save the Ghanaian about 500 million Ghana cedis distributed across petroleum consumers. So it's a form of direct savings to some of our petroleum consumers, especially those who are likely going to procure the products when prices are exceeding 18 Ghana cedis, 87 pesos. So it's a relief. I think that it is likely going to help consumers redirect some of their savings that would have been used to top up to get their real income. They will continue to save this amount for other operational activities and investment activities at the household. So it's a plus, and we must commend government for that.
How does it, I mean, compared to the 2026, sorry, the April 2026 intervention? You know, in April there was another one. There was another government absorbed it. What's the difference between this and that of April one?
So 2026 April 13, when it was announced and implemented on 16th April, was quite progressive, was quite proactive because proper assessment was done to realize that prices were likely going to surge in the subsequent window. Unfortunately, I think that government relaxed a bit on this one. Government didn't actually do proper assessment to determine or to know whether prices were going to increase. So most of the OMCs had already procured these products from the BBCs, paying the full taxes and the margins of 4 Ghana to 25 pesos. And that is why, even though government had announced since afternoon that there was going to be a reduction of 2 Ghana cedis, most of the OMCs are not reflective of this particular tax cut because they are still keeping the prices as though this announcement was not made. So I think that the difference is the timing of the intervention. The April one was fast, was very prompt compared to this current intervention.
I see. The intervention is coming at a cost to the public purse, with estimates suggesting around 200 million Ghana cedis per pricing window. Now, many are talking about the sustainability of this intervention. Is this a sustainable approach, or is the government merely kicking the countdown to the road?
I think that the issue of cost is quite debatable because the margins relax on the build-up. Margins we've been overpaying for years. Since 2015, we've been overpaying some of these margins. And if you critically looked at the Auditor General report, some of these margins were realizing a surplus of about 1 billion Ghana cedis as of 2024. So what it simply means is that the consumer had already been overpaying them. So normally I would even tell someone that this is not a subsidy. Maybe the subsidy on it is around only 63 pesos. But the actual reduction were margins we've already been paying for various activities in the petroleum downstream. So the issue of cost is quite debatable. But sustainability also depends on how prices will fare in the coming windows. There's a bit of unpredictability, uncertainty. The market is quite rough, and it's difficult to predict prices. But if there's calm in the Gulf areas, I believe that prices, especially the price of the product on the international market, will relax. So government may also reimpose these margins on the buildup. However, if the fight continues or the conflict continues and the intervention continues, it means that most of these funds are likely going to run deficit, and government must find ways to show up these funds into a better balanced position to serve the specific purposes or functions they are expected to serve in the petroleum downstream. These are no money for government anyway. The surplus of them goes to government. But I also think that if they run deficit, government must make sure that they're able to allocate some revenues or income from our upstream, because upstream revenues are likely going to do a petroleum revenue. It's likely going to exceed expectations. So we can allocate part to support pushing the petroleum downstream.
I've had people question why the price stabilization and recovery levy, which was increased by 1 cedi in July 2025, is still being charged despite promises to use it to protect the consumers largely. Should government consider reducing or suspending that levy instead of absorbing the cost directly?
So currently, we don't have anything called price stabilization and recovery levy in the petroleum downstream. That has been consolidated into what we now call energy sector shortfall and their repayment levy, which is 1 Ghana to 93 on diesel and the 1 Ghana to 95 pesos per liter on petrol. That is what we have. So it's quite difficult to mention price stabilization recovery. But the intent of that particular levy, which at the time of the consolidation was 14 on diesel and 16 on petrol, was that if in future prices were escalating to certain levels, that becomes an insurance. Government uses that particular fund to reduce, or what normally people say, subsidize for better price of petroleum product. Unfortunately, the price stabilization and recovery level also serves other functions in terms of subsidizing premix, and earlier was also subsidizing heavy fuel oil. So there are certain times that the amount is not even enough to be able to subsidize premix or subsidize heavy fuel oil, and for that matter, will not be able to perform the function of under recovery in the petroleum downstream.
I see. Let me bring you to what the commercial transport operators are also, anticipating. Well, the commercial transport operators have already threatened transport fares increments. Currently, they are in a meeting. Do you think this 2 Ghana cedis absorption would be enough to prevent another fare hike, or we are likely to see transport fares go up anyway? From where you sit as an energy analyst.
I think that they may have a point. There's some form of justification to increase transport fares, because we look at the price of the product last year when they reduced fares by 15% compared to the general prices of the product have increased. But my issue has to do with whether the cost that will be increased or the percentage that will be increased on transport will be fair or will be very balanced, whether the CTOs are going to benefit more compared to the commuters. Because transportation cost, its determinants is not transparent and has never been fair. And I think that as a Minister of Transport, Minister of Finance, that is something that we need to address in such a way that at any point in time, it doesn't take CTOs or commercial transport operators to announce hikes in transport. I think there must be a mechanism, there must be a framework, established framework with timelines, established framework with parameters and indicators, established framework with weighting scheme for any of these parameters, so that at any point in time, we are able to determine whether transport increases or decreases, not only based on fuel, because it doesn't engender fairness in transport costs. It doesn't promote transparency in transport costs. And I think that at the point in the one of the stakeholders take advantage of the other.
I see. Let's come to Tema Oil Refinery. This is the nation's refinery outfit. President Mahama over the weekend commissioned officially, so to speak. Many do have some confidence in it that, well, this can do some magic for the country as far as dependence on international markets is concerned. From where you sit as an energy analyst, Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors say that, we could meet up to 50% of Ghana's domestic fuel consumption. Do you see same? Do you think Tema Oil Refinery can make some impact as far as these developments are concerned? Mr. Zia, can you hear me?
I can hear you. In the short term, I think that Sentio and Tema Refinery will be able to make the 50% projected or estimated by Seaboard or Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors. And I think I support them in the short term, but based on the medium-term plan where these two major refineries are planning to scale up production or expand their capacities, I think that they are likely going to make the total supply of petroleum products, which is also likely going to even exceed our demand as a country. In terms of impact, I think one surest impact is product availability at all times. But pricing, we'll be able to address the issue of pricing and how they impact pricing of petroleum products depending on certain reforms in the petroleum downstream. I think that when they're able to do 50%, we need a new pricing regime in the downstream in terms of even knowledge of the landed cost of the product, because these products are produced here. We don't need any hidden costs announced by BIDEX in terms of premiums announcement, and based on that, they hike price of product. So Tema Refinery could also perform the function like Sonabi of Burkina Faso, so that we're able to know very transparent way of pricing petroleum products and very fair way of pricing petroleum products. So pricing we only feel impact as a country when we put certain reforms in the petroleum downstream to address certain ill behavior of some of the investors or petroleum service providers. Also, I think that beyond the availability pricing issues, which we also know that even if we are not able to institute the reforms, we should be assured that the freight and insurance costs will not be the same. So we may not allow BDCs to quote higher freight costs if actually these BDCs are buying from Cintio and then Tor. So I think the NPA must police that space very well to ensure that we are not taking advantage of. Now, beyond that, I think availability, pricing is also the issue of its impact on the city. I think Tor will play a very critical role. Tor and Cintio are likely going to play a very critical role in terms of stabilizing the city in the medium term if they are able to do much of the expansions they mentioned. Because we may not depend much on BOG to import finished products, because if you look at our budget for import, every month we spend about $450 million. But if these two refineries are doing 50%, it means that we are likely going to need half of what we need to import these products into the local economy. And that makes our dependence on dollar to import lesser. And that also stabilizes or strengthens the city against the dollar. And if the city is strengthening, it also feeds into better pricing of petroleum products, because exchange rates plays a critical role in certain price of petroleum products. So I think that it also adds on to comparatively cheaper petroleum products at the pump in future. Lastly, too, I think the macroeconomic indicators are clear. Exchange rate stability, inflation stability, comparatively stable inflation in future, comparatively stable interest rate, because if inflation is stable, Bank of Ghana will not jump to increase monetary policy. So it also helps sustain our macroeconomic stability and gains. Now, beyond macroeconomic gains also have socioeconomic impacts, because at the end of the day, Tema Refinery will be creating more jobs. Creating more jobs also means that our unemployment rate comparatively is likely going to reduce. Dependency rate is likely going to reduce, and some form of poverty will also be alleviated from some households, and that also helps in terms of our growth. So TOR brings all benefits. Aside the energy security, it brings macroeconomic benefit, and it also brings socioeconomic benefit. I think the time has come for us to look at it critically in such a way that it becomes the backbone of our economic growth and industrialization.
Okay. Mr. Xiang, I'm grateful for your time this evening. So that's Benjamin Isia, who is Executive Director for Center for Environmental Management and Sustainable Energy. Some say they're also sharing his perspective as far as this particular discussion is concerned. This is 505 on Class 91.3 FM in Accra. I'll take a break. When I come back, we have more.
"30 years ago, MTN arrived in Ghana and everything changed. Now, to celebrate 30 years, we are giving back big time. The MTN at 30 promo is here. 9 Toyota Land Cruiser Prados to be won. Over 10 million Ghana cedis in rewards, plus so much more. Connect to your everyday hustle on MTN. Make video calls. Browse the internet for business with family and friends. Connect your home to MTN Fiber. Make that money move on Momo and stay ahead, because every move counts. Ghana, let's celebrate 30 years of MTN with the MTN at 30 promo. Use more MTN services, build more points, and win big. Dial *530# or visit the My MTN app for more.
You're welcome back from that quick commercial break. It's some 39 minutes after 5. You're on Class 91.3. This is 505. To some other stories, Ghanaians lost an estimate of $1.3 million to mobile money fraud in the first quarter of 2025, according to the latest Interpol Africa Cyber Threats Assessment report. The report identifies Ghana as one of the several African countries experiencing a rise in cyber-enabled financial crimes, with fraudsters increasingly targeting mobile money users through pushing SIM swap attacks, fake promotion, and other social engineering schemes. Interpol warns that the rapid growth of digital financial services has created new opportunities for cyber criminals to gain access to users' accounts, intercept one-time password, and carry out unauthorized transactions. The report also raises concern over the growing use of artificial intelligence by fraudsters, including AI-generated messages and voice cloning technology to make scams appear more convincing. There's more in the following report.
The Interpol African Cyber Threat Assessment Report 2026 cites Ghana as one of the countries grappling with rising mobile money fraud, noting that the losses came as cyber criminals increasingly exploited digital payments platforms to target unsuspecting users. The report describes mobile money fraud as Africa's most widespread online scam, with 97% of countries responding to Interpol's member country survey, identifying it as a major cybercrime threat. Per the report, mobile money fraud emerged as the most prevalent online scam reported by member countries, warning that the rapid growth of digital financial services has created new opportunities for cyber criminals. The report highlights Kenya as another country heavily affected by the trend, where authorities detected more than 123,000 fraudulent SIM cards in 2025 that were linked to SIM swap fraud. It says criminals increasingly exploit weaknesses in mobile payment ecosystems to intercept one-time password, hijack customer accounts, and conduct unauthorized transactions. Interpol warned that advances in artificial intelligence are making online scams more convincing and difficult to detect. The report calls for stronger cooperation between law enforcement agencies, financial institutions, and telecommunication companies to combat the growing threats.
So that's a news desk report. The Accra High Court has ordered the freezing of 5 bank accounts and 4 landed properties belonging to Dennis Miracles Abuaji as part of an ongoing investigation by the Economic and Organized Crime Office (YOCO) into alleged financial and procurement-related irregularities involving approximately 55 million Ghana cedis. The order bars any transactions on the accounts and any sale or transfer of the properties pending the outcome of the investigation. Listen to a report filed by court correspondent Ababriu.
The Accra High Court has ordered the freezing of 5 bank accounts and 4 landed properties belonging to former Executive Secretary of the Inter-Ministerial Coordinating Committee on Decentralization, Dennis Miracles Abuaji, as part of an ongoing investigation by the Economic and Organized Crime Office. The order temporarily bars any transactions involving the identified bank accounts and prohibits the sale, transfer, mortgage, or disposal of the 4 landed properties until further orders are made by the court. The directive forms part of IOCO's effort to preserve assets that may be relevant to its ongoing investigations into alleged financial and procurement-related irregularities. Miracles Abuaji is currently under investigations over allegations of financial and procurement-related irregularities involving approximately 55 million Ghana cedis during his tenure as Executive Secretary. IOCO is examining transactions and procurement processes undertaken during the period in question as part of its efforts to determine whether any financial irregularities occurred. Dennis Miracles Abuaji denied all the allegations leveled against him, maintaining that he has committed no wrongdoing. He was granted bail in the sum of 50 million Ghana cedis with 3 sureties, pending the outcome of the investigations. Reporting for Class News, I am Mami Ababriu.
So that's a report filed by my colleague and our court correspondent, Mami Ababriu. Well, let's speak with a private legal practitioner in the person of Lawyer Bracco Pius. He's a private legal practitioner. He joins me on the phone. Counsel, I'm grateful for your time on 505. Good evening to you, sir.
Yeah, good evening. I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you clearly now. First of all, does the freezing of assets imply that the individual has committed an offense, or it is purely a precautionary measure?
Thank you. Let me say good evening to your listeners and viewers on social media.
Mm.
The point must be made clear that when Yoko, as part of its investigative roles, has the opportunity to freeze any property. So property here could include an account, a bank account. But the same law, the Yoko Act, mandate that when Yoko freezes the account, Yoko must go for a confirmatory order from the High Court. So what we are witnessing or hearing is a confirmatory order from the High Court confirming Yoko's decision to freeze Miracle Abuaji's account. Now, what it means is that he's an investigation. It is not indication that he has committed any crime, but it is an indication that he's being investigated for various infractions, which may include the commission of a crime or two or more crimes. So let's have it in mind. It is not indication that he has committed any crime, but it is indication that he's being investigated for the possible commission of some crimes against the Republic.
Mm. What rights does the affected person have after such an order is made? Can the order be challenged or varied?
Yes, the Parent Act, that is the Yoko Act, gives the injured individual, in other words, the person affected by the confirmatory order of the High Court, to go to the High Court, either to vary it. But you must understand that for there to be variation, you must prove that indeed the particular property, which is the subject of the freezing order, is not connected to the subject of investigation. So it is not a given that you can just go up to the High Court and say, my property was frozen and I want you to remove or defreeze it. You must be able to prove certain things, the basis of which the High Court may look upon it and rule in your favor. But without that, the freezing order may persist. And we must understand that this freezing order will persist for 1 year or subject to the order of the court. So the court may, so per the law, if it is not varied, it will persist for 1 year, or the court will vary it, or any other incident that the court may determine. So, in other words, must understand that this will continue to be there until the court has varied the freezing order.
So, what are some of the things he can prove for the account to be defreezed?
Yeah. So first off, I indicated that he must show the court that indeed the property which has been frozen is not a subject of the matter being
investigated.
Being investigated by Iyoko or any of the investigative authorities. He must be able to prove that, and he must also to prove that either he is all alone, maybe the property that has been frozen was not acquired through the subject of investigation. So if it is so, the proceeds, where did you get the proceeds from? Where did you get the money in the account from? Maybe you got it by disposing a property, and that property has nothing to do with whatever Yoko or BNI is investigating. If you're able to prove these elements, the court would then say that, okay, let's vary the order, or let it persist for a period of maybe 6 months, or any other incident the court may determine. But if you're unable to prove that the property frozen has any remote connection with the subject investigation, the court, you may not be able to get a favorable response or verdict from the court.
What do you anticipate going forward in this matter, as far as the freezing of account?
What we need to understand is that this is one of a string of options that Yoko has, and it is to preserve the subject matter. So we must understand that freezing orders are usually imposed or ordered to preserve the subject matter, so as to avoid anybody tampering with the subject matter. So if Yoko in their investigation believes that the accounts are connected to the subject of their investigation, they have the right to freeze the orders or freeze those accounts and also have same affirmed or confirmed by the court. It's an indication that they believe that per their investigation or preliminary investigation, these accounts have something to do with the subject of investigation. So I am hopeful that in the coming days, depending on what they're able to uncover in their investigation, we may see either charges preferred against Miracle Boaji in the coming days. So that is to say that Yoko, when it is done with their investigation, will have to finalize or share the report with the Attorney General. And so then the Attorney General would then have to make the prosecutorial orders as to whether or not this is a subject of criminal proceedings or not. And that is that is within the prerogative of the Attorney General. But this indication that there's a larger investigative areas to cover, and we should be expecting either charges in the coming days.
I see. Counsel, I'm grateful for your time this evening with us. So that's lawyer Bracco Powers, who's a private legal practitioner. It's time for business, and Norinda Irajwa Kranche is here.
And in business, the Vehicles and Assets Dealers Association of Ghana has criticized the government's decision to ban the importation of vehicles that are 10 years old or more, effective August 1. According to the association, there is already a custom order prohibiting such importation. This follows a new enforcement policy requiring all imported used vehicles to be inspected before shipment and to meet Ghana's safety and environmental standards. Speaking on the afternoon business review, the executive director of VADAC, Frank Atiale Kofiga, questioned the timing of the ban and the accompanying policy.
The implementation of this particular, policy or this particular standardization comes on the back of what we are told is a pre-shipment inspection policy. A pre-shipment inspection policy means that before the vehicle is shipped from the country of origin, it needs to be inspected. The question is inspected by who? See the customs or the inspection out in the country of origin or from where? They need to be very proper explanations to this before you even think about a rollout. And the question again is, why first the standard boss keeps saying that they are still they are still going through review processes of the drafts or the policy. So if you're going through a review process, why are you in a haste to implement something that you don't have a clear-cut understanding of what the ends will mean?
He added that the move is intended to frustrate local dealers while the main corporate remains at liberty in their dealings.
That we are not against standardization of automobile. Any country or citizenry that is against standard, risk, hurting themselves, okay? Because the standards authority are there to ensure that whatever we import into this country is good, is quality, and for the people. You understand me? So we are not against standardization. But the answer to that question lies in the bottom of the standards authority. Are they allowing themselves to be used as an agency of states to frustrate the number of used vehicles that are coming into the country? That is the question that they need to answer. But we, as a union, have observed that a lot of people who are not dealers, they sit in their rooms and they import a lot of bad and shady vehicles into the economy.
You heard the Executive Secretary of Vehicles and Assets Dealers Association of Ghana. The Bank of Ghana has intensified its crackdown on illegal digital lending while warning the public against engaging with 20 unlicensed digital credit service providers operating in the country. In a public notice issued today, the central bank said the entities continue to offer digital loans to Ghanaians through mobile application and other digital platforms without the required license or authorization. According to the bank, the continued operation of these digital lenders pose significant risks to consumers, particularly in the areas of data privacy, consumers protection, and regulatory compliance. International news. The US has made permanent a visa bond program that could require some travelers from 50 countries, including 30 in Africa, to pay up to $200 before receiving a US business or tourist visa. The money is refunded if the visitor leaves US before their visa expires and obeys all visa rules. It's forfeited if they overstay or violate the terms of their visa. African countries on the list include Nigeria, Algeria, Angola, Benin, Botswana, Burundi, Cabo Verde, Central African Republic, Cote d'Ivoire, Djibouti, Ethiopia, Gambia, the Gambia, Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, Lesotho, Malawi, Mauritania, Mauritius, Mozambique, Namibia, Sao Tome and Principe, Senegal, Seychelles, Tanzania, Togo, Tunisia, Uganda, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. This is how we wrap up business on 505. My name is Irajua Crunchy.
So that's Norene Raja Crunchy coming through with business this evening. So let's do some few messages and then take leave of you. This one says, good evening 505. I'm Eben from Kwabenya. Yoko really working power. And I think we all have to applaud them for the human job done. Every penny stolen by politicians have to be retrieved by all means. I'm happy the courts are freezing people's accounts for allegations of corruption. Awilo Atitu, GPR Tunho, says that government intervention is as a result of the disproportionate increase in fuel prices, which may be having an impact on the public purse. Okay, thank you for your message as well. Ifo Komla says, Kwame, good news for transport sector and transport operators that President John Dramani Mahama has directed his government to reduce petroleum products by 2 Ghana cedis on diesel. Okay, so thank you. That's a very lengthy one. Cut it short this evening. Hi KOJ, it's good news to hear GM and NDC government has reduced fuel price by 2 Ghana cedis, but it came too late. Next time they should be proactive. Francis in Accra also shares that's with us. Review scratch for when it's here. Just dial star 850 star 5 hash and select all networks. Choose class 91.3. Select take amount between 5 cities and 2,000 cities. Choose your lucky card out of 5 options. Confirm gameplay and enter your Momo pin. It is fun, easy, and exciting. Get up to 1 million Ghana cedis. Review scratch for winning scratch keke Nadisi Kasi Bam. Strictly for persons 18 years and above and powered by Super Cash Games. MTN says sometimes big moments start with big things, small things. A call to a loved one, a Momo transaction to support family, a bundle to grow your business. But what if they could lead to something bigger than you ever imagined? With MTN at 30 promo, every call, every text, every browse, every Momo transaction, every connection to home fiber, and every activity on my MTN app earns you point towards amazing rewards, including 9 brand new Toyota Land Cruiser Prados, over 10 million Ghana cedis in cash prizes, and unforgettable experience just for you, because every move counts. Just dial star 530 hash or use my MTN app to participate now, and let's stay connected everywhere you go. MTN at 30 promo, make every move count. Terms and conditions applied. MTN everywhere you go. On behalf of my team, led by Nano Yankra, produced by Norenda Irajua Crunchy, I'm grateful for your company in the last 60 minutes. I leave you in the hands of Mr. Mauto, who will drive you home safely. Remember, today's Monday. We'll take a call until you get home safely this evening. My name is Kwame Okyere Jnr. Pleasure coming your way this evening on 505. Good evening, good night.
Bringing you the best in television content and programming on CTV. Ghana's #1, 24/7. Always tune in to CTV for that